And then this week we've had another issue brought up where obviously the Udinese AC Milan game got called off after 10 minutes because of the racist abuse that AC Milan goalkeeper Mike Maignan was receiving. Every goal kick he was going to take, he could hear abuse from the crowd, and the game got abandoned. And obviously in England as well, in the commentary Sheffield Wednesday game, there was instances of Kasey Palmer receiving similar abuse. Dave, we've talked about stuff of this nature so many times on and off mic. It's something that has been a problem within football for as long as the game's been on. And it feels like every time we take steps forward, fan bases bring it back down again, sadly. And the latest talk from Infantino was that FIFA and football cannot accept these things, and that although he's really happy that the three-step plan of pausing the game, pausing again, and then abandoning is working to a degree of at least taking the players out of that firing line, it's not solving the problem. And his view was that education needs to happen earlier in schools, football needs to be more united, and actually he suggested that from now on, examples of racism within a fan base would result in a forfeit of the game from the team whose fans were subjecting other players' opposition to this racist abuse. Now, in theory, it's not the worst idea, I think. I understand the logic behind it, and I think that you need to put something into place that will deter fans from taking part. And the sad truth of football and life is that the impact that it has on another human being and basic empathy is not enough to deter people from being racist. But their football team not picking up 3 points is. And it's a shocking truth of the world. But it seems like that might be the only course of action. You think that the plan might be slightly flawed because it could be manipulated very easily. I do agree with that. I'd like to hear your take on it in a second. But where do we stand with this? Because it just feels like there's a never-ending problem.
It is. It's a constant cycle that we're going round. It's just continuous, isn't it? And it is difficult to kind of figure out, I think, a plan of action, how we're actually going to tackle these issues. Actually, like you mentioned, forfeiting the games. Is that on the basis of a large portion of the fans in the stadium, obviously showing these racist behaviours and towards the players, or is that for individuals, or is it's really difficult how you're gonna calculate that. Again, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be tolerated at all. It's disgusting to see. I saw the clips of the Sheffield Wednesday game as well, of the fan, obviously. Kasey Palmer obviously brought it to the referee's attention, which is really good to see. Like that's should be done. Players shouldn't be having to just ignore it and just suffer that sort of torment. Really, the games should be being suspended and play should be brought to a halt. Whether that's games that are the games are abandoned and played another day, and obviously take action against the individuals who are stupid enough to act the way that they are doing. And it's just frustrating, isn't it? Because it's something we feel like it's tiring in a way that it's a depressing subject. It really is. To continue to have to talk about it and acknowledge that there's this sort of behaviour still in the game, and that's something that needs to be rectified, like you mentioned, through educating people at a very young age. And I think one of the things that it's not monitored enough is on social media. I feel like that's something that's not policed well enough.
Yeah, of course not.
I just think it's so easy to target players and individuals, and it just happens every day. That's the sad thing about it. Happens every day on there, and obviously in matches, let's be honest, it could happen to a player maybe once or twice a season potentially. But these players who are so engaged with the outside world and those who are watching football every day get to see this on their mobile phones every single day, which is the awful thing, really.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, before we were recording, Mike and I were talking about this, and Mike said, so Infantino's saying this, does that mean he might be getting something right? And the sad truth of it is, I'll believe it when I see it. and it feels like it's virtue signaling from FIFA, and they're saying something because they need to be seen saying something. But we've been talking about this for so long. It, Nothing's changing. FIFA at one point put together an anti-racism task force, which was eventually disbanded because they said that they'd solved the problem. Well, clearly you haven't. Serie A has been dealing with these kinds of attitudes for the longest time, and it feels like there it is particularly poignant. But it happens in this country too. We saw it at the weekend, like you mentioned, and it's devastating seeing that. And I feel really proud of players like Mike Maignan for taking that stand, because no human being should go to any workplace and be subjected to abuse. Now, the three of us, white British men, can talk about this matter and can only try and think about the impact that it's having on these players. It would be nice to get some other opinions on this and people closer to it, because I don't know what the answer is the honest answer. And I like the idea of penalising fans, because I think it's a criminal activity and they need to be penalised in the most severe way from a personal level possible. And I think the only benefit I see of forfeiting games for a team is that it incentivizes the clubs to do more in terms of helping police those matters and educating their fan bases. Because let's be honest, the majority of this racism is bred from ignorance that then turns hatred. And that's a horrible reality that exists in our game. And I feel like that's consistent across a lot of issues we're talking about at the moment, and the attitudes across fan bases. It's sad because you, myself, Mike, we come on here every week and talk about football with each other because we love football. We talk with our friends about it. We are highly engrossed in the game, and it feels like moments like this take it away from us. And it's really sad, but it was one that I didn't want us to ignore this week, and I don't think we ever will.